Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're going to talk about a paradox, open source paradox. So let's dive deep into it. So let's talk about establishment. Now, whatever company you want to put here, you can put here. So basically at this point in time, we have three kings, which is Apple, Microsoft, Google. Whatever happens in the back end happens in the back end. These are the front facing of, well, our entire digital life. Whatever you are doing is either happening in Google, Microsoft or Apple. That's it. So fundamentally, they are king globally. It's not like somewhere else is something different. It is globally like damn good coverage, and they have started to lose quality. Like it has become a meme in Windows specifically that one version would be good, another one would be bad. Like XP was good, Vista was garbage, 7 was good, 8 was garbage, 10 was good. Like one good, one bad. And even in Mac also, you may be like, oh no, Mac is also no. Trust me, people who have been using Macs for like very long time and all that, I'm saying iTunes and all that, even they can point it out. It's like, what the heck is like happening to this app store? It's like just becoming a sales page, so to say. So, and again, Android also is like, used to be like, damn, to like, sir, you are just putting things. It's not as efficient or elegant as it could be, quality control wise. And in terms of services, Google search engine, yeah, good luck with that. And again, voice also. Voice of all these threes has not actually improved that much. So how the heck that happened? Like quality control, which you would expect from multi-trillion-dollar company, you will expect the quality control to be good. It's not. And flat out, they are taking an insane amount of data on us, like consumer data, and they're using it without consent. Like they are like, lol, what else you gonna do? And care. Like even though you are leeching all my data, you still can't provide me good search result. What's the point of leeching all my data? It's like, why? You're spying everything. Awesome, no problem. It's just like, at least give something in return. Outcome is nothing. So everybody hates it. Like, let this be very clear. If you think like, oh, I hate Apple, or I hate Google, or I hate Microsoft, welcome to the club. It's normal. It's everybody hates it. The reason we are stuck here is basically we no longer have any other choice. No option. There is no option where you can like, okay, this is bad. Let me jump into something good. There is nothing good. So this is the problem with establishment. They started out very good. Like if you compare like their old product lineups, like how reliable Apple laptops used to be, people were like, whoa, 5-year life, 6-year life. Now they're like, oh, dust fell into it, so it broke. So the reality is like quality controls in terms of hardware, in terms of reliability, it's like, it's going down. How the heck it's going down? But it's happening. Software wise, God help you. So open source was invented. So the idea with open sources in like basically 90s to early 2000s, the idea was, let's create an open ecosystem for all. Ecosystem. Now this is very critical aspect. Whenever you're talking about how the heck company owns something, there is copyright, there is laws, there is precedence for it, there is data set. Like this is what you have to do. If you follow these steps, government will take care of you. Now here's the, if you make something free, you also have to do the same thing. Basically same way, if you want a trademark of something, even if you are not using the trademark, you must register it. Of course, that will take a little bit of money, but you have to register it. If you do not register it or someone else registers it, they can exploit it. And it has happened. Even happened with multiple open source projects like uh, SCP protocol. Like that's a story lineup where people are like creating their own user-based stories and studies. And it's a very good community and all that, but somebody figured out like they never registered it. They registered it. So every SCP is getting copyright claim. So it's one of those things that you need an ecosystem. If you do not have an ecosystem for it, like this is the law, this is the data set, this is how we're gonna go about it, you are stuck. You're just hoping, praying. It's like hipster logic. So idea with open source, this logo that you see, is that all can use it, all can improve it, and it can be done hopefully for free. That hopeful part is critical. So using, and it won't be locked. There won't be a like, no, this is our proprietary, you cannot use it. No, you can go all in, you can study it, you can improve it, do whatever you need to do with it. So they built a licensing ecosystem. So whenever you say open source, does not mean anything realistically. Like to a lawyer, to a people who actually deal with this, it does not mean anything. You have to say, is it GPL license? Is it MIT license? Is it Apache license? Is it BSD license? Whatever. Like there is a whole host of things. MPL license, LGPL license. And each of them also has versions where you like BSD 3 license, BSD GPL 2.0 license, GLP 2.0 or later, GPL 3.0 or later. And yes, People have to study this, and yes, there are lawyers whose sole job is to sort this out. And yes, it is compulsory, specifically if you are doing anything commercial. Let's say you are working on a game and you are like, hey, I'm using this free open source game engine. You do not go through this, like you do not properly study it. You may be like, huh, it was free for non-commercial use. The moment you use commercially, they are like, lol, give us money. So be very mindful. You have to study this sort of thing. And the reason why there are so many licenses rather than just one license is basically they are tailor-made for different projects and different needs. Some projects are like, hey, you take this, you modify it and you sell it. You take this, you do not modify it, and anything you do to it, you have to scream that, hey, you are doing something to it. Like, completely, it's completely open, you can never lock it. Some are like, hey, you can, as long as you are modifying it, as long as you are giving credit, you can sell it. Some they are like, hey, you can take the core, do whatever the heck you want to do it, as long as you are not backfeeding something. Like there are laws within laws with some more laws. So I have linked a video down below, but trust me, it will only confuse you, because again, lawyers exist for a reason. You have to go through this licensing to understand this properly. So not everything is free, and not every open source is free also. Many open sources are not free. It is very critical aspect that you have to, like, you're like, what if I copy it? Yeah, you can copy it. Then their lawyers will fire missile at you. So and especially at commercial scale is the only scale that matters. So open source does not guarantee, and like it has happened with ZFS. So be very mindful. Like just because something is open source does not mean it's free. And you can even use it and sell it also. It's not illegal. If you, let's say, take a Linux kernel and you did something to it and packaged it, you can sell it as a product. You can sell it as a, like, whole service. That's what Red Hat does. So be mindful. You can do a lot of things, and that's why so many agreements matter specific to your project. Again, depending what project you are using, MIT, GPL or Apache, you have to study those things. So that's the open source side of things. So have there been any success? Well, yes, Linux kernel itself is immensely successful. Whenever you say about open source, 99% of the time people think about Linux kernel. What the heck is kernel? Kernel is the bridge between what you use versus what computer speaks. So computer speaks in machine language, on off binary. Okay, you can't read or study binary. So, and not to mention switch itself is useless. So we arrange a switch in a very particular way. We call it ISA, instruction set architecture. There are three major ISA. One is x86, owned by Intel. Then you have ARM, owned by ARMS Holdings, and then you have RISC-V, that is open source, right now under construction, so to say. So on top of that machine architecture, basically instruction set architecture, you run kernel. Kernel allows you to run stuff on top of it. So Linux kernel allows you to basically run your program on servers. And that kernel means you can do it on Raspberry Pi, you can do it in a toaster, you can do it on any ARM processor or x86 processor or whatever have you. So that's how it started. It became very successful. Even NASA paid money into it, meaning there are many NASA services, not only limited to like the actual hardware on Earth, also in space. Many of them are using Linux kernels, so to say. And big enterprise, literally at this point in time, you throw a stone at a server, 99% of the time the software running is Linux. Of course, on top of Linux, it could be something else. It will be else something, different in different projects. But you get the point. Like there is always something running Linux. It's very successful. Then we come to VLC, and I know for a fact that everybody uses VLC. VLC, like in early 2000s to early 2010, there were a lot of video players. They were like, you had options, like you can go into players and people would have different options. Like some computer will have this, some computer will have that. All of them faded away because this became so successful, so good. At this point in time, you buy a computer, this generally is the first thing that you install. So it has become a media player. The only reason you have to use other media player is that some of the codecs are a bit twitchy and it cannot play Dolby Vision. That's why I use Microsoft basically Windows Media Player. It's like, why? Well, Dolby Vision is a paid codec. You cannot use paid codec on free stuff. So if I have to play Dolby Vision on VLC, it will look like that pink blue mess. If I play the same video file in basically Microsoft, because Microsoft has paid the license key for Dolby Vision, it can play it properly. So this is why VLC became the media player, like flat out. Media player equals VLC, done, go home, sweet dreams. Then we come to basically OBS, Open Broadcasting Software. This puppy is huge. Like, not only in streamings, as in like, internet Twitch streaming or YouTube streaming, it's actually used in many broadcasts. Yes, television broadcasts have also used this. So it is very big. Like, it's lifeblood for a whole lot of people, not just one person, a whole lot of them. Like, not one, two, three eras, like millions of them. Like, there is a whole era defined by OBS. That's how successful that is. So that's just these are two very big successful consumer stories. Consumer uses these things. Then we have the backend where Linux is very successful, and you have Python, which is free and open source. You have MySQL, you have PHP, and there are many more. So I will run out of screen space if I write them. And there are many more that are still under construction. So there have been a lot of success utilizing all those licenses. People have done things, and again, things have been successful. People have using it. Everything is fine. Everything is dandy. So this is the success part of it. But then again, if you have success, you're gonna have some failures. Well, there are free and open source tools for almost all field job market. Basically, if I do 3D modeling, there is a tool for that. Like, my studio paid a lot of money. Anybody working in studios will tell you, we pay like a kidney kind of money for Adobe. Yeah, Adobe Suites also. Yeah, we need to pay for that also, and we also have to pay a boatload of money to Autodesk. Autodesk owns 3ds Max, Maya, and all that, and people pay for it. It's like, why? We have free and open source. That's the critical aspect. That's where my generally open source fails. So why do people pay? Like, is there a free version of Photoshop? Yes, GIMP is there. Why do people pay for that? Adobe charges a lot, and back in the days they used to have, like, perpetual license. Now they don't even have that. You have to do monthly. Same goes with Autodesk. Same goes with almost every brand. So why do people are suffering and paying? And why the heck every studio, every corporate, everything that is like big and big money, they always pay for Microsoft rather than using, let's say, Linux distribution that, like, Ubuntu or whatever have you. Why? Because they can't. They can't switch to these free things. For example, I am not an engineer, nor I have been taught CAD, computer-aided design. But I opened up Fusion 360 and experimented with it, and I became actually competent in it, meaning I can think about something, I can design it and 3D print it. I got that. Now, are there free options? Yes. Like, Fusion 360 is free but not open source, and if I have to do anything more than, like, few years, it will say, hey, renew your license. And renew license means, yeah, I'm still a student, still a hobbyist, and if you do anything that has actually money involved, you have to start paying them monthly. So why didn't I use FreeCAD? I did try to learn it. I did try to use it. Trust me. Like, I actually opened it, installed it, and tried to do muck around it, and I was like, no. Flat out, it can't be done. And like GIMP, Blender, these things are good today. I knew these things like 5 to 6 years ago. Trust me, it wasn't good. Like, Blender always used to host a competition, a year-end competition, where they're like, what is the best thing that was done, and what are the new functions and features. Like, I was in institute studying at that time. The big news was Blender finally figured out how to basically add hairs. Yeah. So fundamentally, people will willingly suffer, willingly pay a lot of money because free and open source tools are so bad. And which department? Which department? Like, what exactly is the problem? The horsepower? Hell no. This got more than enough horsepower. It's like, can it not do what Photoshop does? That's not the issue. That's not the problem. Problem is, like, they have painful UIs, meaning if you look at the distributions, first, this should be the biggest red alert. In server ecosystem, basically, hey, this is a server ecosystem, you do not worry about it. Why? Because the people who are dealing with the server, they are getting paid for it. People are not just like, oh, I'm going to experiment, I'm going to compile kernels for fun. That's only fewer people do that. Realistically, large amount of people who are dealing with servers, they are getting paid for it. They have a good salary, and they're like, hey, I'm getting paid to put up with this. So if you're like, oh, you have to learn this coding and all that, they will do that because they are getting paid for it. Desktop, Microsoft does not ask you to learn code. Apple does not ask you to learn code. Android does not ask you to learn code. They do. Like, I can guarantee you can have ever tried Linux distribution. Most of the time, they will start a tutorial where it's like, oh, you can just right click here. You're like, good, awesome, right click here. And then it's like, go into command prompt and then type this giant command. That's the primary reason. User interface of all these free tools are surprisingly bad. Now, at first I thought like one could be bad, two could be bad. Then how the heck all of them are this bad? Then I realized they are built from a developer's mind of view. Like, a developer sat down and designed this. Not basically, programmer designed this. All the design interface, like, what the hell is this color? Again, if I ever did something like this, because again, I'm an artist, my teacher will fire missile at me. Like, this color, and majority of them is like, just open it up, like open LibreOffice. You're like, what the hell are these icons? Now you're like, does not trust me, it matters. The first impact that you have, visual eye impact, you're like, what the hell is this? And that's just the user interface side of things. Let's say you forced through it and you learned something, you will have some problems, you will have some issues. And most of the time, any of these community, even FreeBSD or whatever game, it's always user error. They'll always like, oh, you don't know how to use it. It's like, what the hell? Like, I want to do task, I want to do work, do not want to learn the tool. Basically, if Photoshop has some issue, I can just look into it. Like, Photoshop does not have the ability to highlight text. People just tell you, it's like, yeah, Photoshop does not have that. This is how you bypass it. In Linux, you like, let's say driver is not working. Oh, you are stupid. You need to compile it. When did I sign up for that? I'm not a developer. This is the most critical failure, specifically on user end, meaning anything that is touched by non-computer people, it will fail. Linux is successful, VLC is very successful, OBS is successful. OBS actually starts to reach a point where like you do need to know some things. Like in OBS, I did write a very small string of code just to have my naming convention exactly as I wanted it. But you see the point. The moment you start to go into things that normal people will use, these things fall apart. If you're getting paid, you will put up with this. If you're not getting paid, you will be like, I do not want to deal with this. Like I have seen people who etch silicon wafers, actual semiconductor in their home, they are using Photoshop. They are smart enough, I can guarantee you that. But why they are not using GIMP? That's the same reason. It's cheaper to pay basically Adobe. That's why the failure side happens. That's why Adobe is such a big deal. That's why Autodesk is such a big thing. Like there are free and open source for everything. Then why do you think people pay for Unreal? Why do you think people pay for Unity if they can have like, free engines? That's the whole point. User interface is written by people who are programmers, not written by people who are just people. So that's the failure aspect. And the more the forks you have, all the forks are bad. Because which OS you use in Windows? Now, you don't think about it. You're just like, my laptop has Windows, my desktop has Windows, my office has Windows. You do not think about it. Apple, you do not think about it. In Linux, it's like even the people who want to make software for it, they also have to be like, which package manager are we using? Yeah, okay, just write that it supports Ubuntu, write that it supports Arch, and yeah, good luck with others. Yeah, that's the issue. There should be Linux desktop, done. And you're like, no, right tool for the right job. No, it's just a desktop. Desktop is the tool. So that's the failure part of it. That's why, like, even though there is free and open source specifically for Photoshop and Adobe Suites and CAD and all that, people don't use them. So what can we learn from there? What is the understanding part of it? Now, this is the whole thing you have to understand. People do not pay for capability, meaning if there are softwares that YouTubers, studio operators, they use just to transcode video. Like many times, camera creates a format that you may just want to repackage, and people will pay good money from Adobe transcoding tools to other companies' tools that are like $100 to $500. People will pay that amount of money legally, willingly, instead of using FFmpeg. Now question becomes why? Well, capability means nothing. Is this powerful? Absolutely. Is this awesome? Undeniably. Is it useful? Hell no. It's like basically the easiest way to explain that is like people don't pay for capability, they pay for usability. Meaning, can I use this tool or not? So it's like in car analogy, is horsepower without the steering wheel. It's like, yeah, it has all the horsepower. It's like, sir, where's the steering? Yeah, no, you have to type. You're like, what the hell? Same thing. And this is the primary reason why Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, they are so rich. They figured it out. Like, I know he has passed away, but that's the whole point. They figured it out that users pay for basically usability, not capability. The GUI was such a big deal. That's the reason. And why the heck computer is a big industry? Because these people figured it out. They figured it out. Nobody wants to learn computer just so they can use computer. That was the biggest light bulb moment. It's like, I should not need to, like an accountant using Excel should not require to like, oh, I need to learn coding. No. They're just like, just type, done. Like think of it as a fancy typewriter or calculator. And that's how they become so rich. People willingly pay them money because they figured it out that there is a computer which requires a developer people and there is normal people. So they build a bridge between developer people and normal people. And that bridge is the thing that they are selling and people are willingly paying for it. So, and every time, and trust me, majority of the Linux distributions and all the free tools, most of them have very toxic ecosystem. Again, people are learning now, but it's very toxic. It's like you have to learn it. It's like Linux is not working, the drivers are not working. Oh, you have to buy a different laptop. What the hell is the answer is that? How the heck Microsoft figured it out? And be mindful, this is another thing. If all the man hours spent into Linux distribution, like 30 to 40 major distribution, you compile them into one, it will bitch slap Microsoft. But it could not, because all of them is like, no, this issue, I created my own distribution. This issue, I created my own distribution. This is for chump change, this is for professional. It's like, yeah, all of them are garbage. So that's why majority of free open source software fails mass adoption. Like there is free open source video editing tool. Nobody talks about it. Why? Again, half of the time the user interface is so bad, so poorly designed. It's like nobody sat down and thought about it. And I can see that. I can see the design. It's like, hey, I put an icon there. It's like, sir, your icon is hurting my eyes. And you were like, that's a small deal. How much money do you think this guy paid for every icon in iPhone, the first iPhone? A lot. That matters. Like, how much money do you think this guy paid for Microsoft Office suite to look the way it did? Like, again, he had some hit, some misses, but majority of it hit. It became a millionaire. So that's the whole point. And there are only 50 million developers, and I'm exaggerating that number. Generally, it's said to be 23 million. But let's just say, go all in, some self-learned people. 50 million is a very small percentage of human population and very small percentage of how much computers are there. Like there's supposed to be around 1 billion computer devices, be it mobile phone, tablets and smartphone, desktop, PC and all that jazz. 1 billion versus 50 million. Very long gap, like very large gap. And they have to understand the reason why developers actually get paid, why they have their food on the table, is simply because there are people like me who do not want to deal with it. Like I have a very weird requirement where I want to put thumbnail into the video file. Okay, can we do that? Yes, MP4 container does support that. You can put a thumbnail into the video file. So you go large thumbnail, it will show the thumbnail rather than the video frame. So this is FFmpeg. This is how I have to copy paste the code and then do that. Now in.mp4 sounds good enough, but here's the, you may think like, hey, what if I just replace that in.mp4 with whatever my video file name is? Problem is that because I'm a basically I am a video game artist, I did learn this the hard way, that computer programs do not like spaces. They cannot handle spaces unless you have a converter layer. So if I put like, let's say, hello world.mp4, it will crash, because it will like, yeah, it won't crash, it will just say directory not found. So because the space is not there, I have to write hello underscore world, then. So the easiest way I have found is just write my input file, input, output would be output named, and the image file would be image.png. Nobody is going to do this. And here's the deal, this is the funny part. FFmpeg is really powerful. If they actually sat down and built interface, not third-party interface, basically some other people realized, hey, FFmpeg needs a GUI and not FFmpeg itself, they could have literally be as big as VLC or even larger than that. And be mindful, OBS uses them as core and many other applications also. Why hadn't it? That's the whole point. Nobody figures out like this is not a smart way of doing it. And you can notice that in all pirated software, why the heck their names are so long and they do not have spaces. They generally have dots. So this is a critical aspect. If you want to be rich, solve a problem. Do not fight with the user. Thou shall not fight with the user. If you have a limitation in your software, say that's a limitation in the software and say we are working to solve it. The end. You do not even need to solve it. You just need to create a workaround, like how there is a workaround for like the fact that you cannot highlight text in Photoshop. People created a workaround right there. So that's the key aspect. Never piss off your user base, because if you piss them off, they're not going to give you money. If Linus Torvalds like actually wanted to be rich, all he would like hardware, basically the server side of things, we good, awesome, no problem. But for normal people, let's compile all the Linux distribution into one. Linux desktop, done. All the man hours spent, all of the basically distros that have been abandoned. Yes, there are many distributions that have been abandoned because not enough people used it. And yes, all of them keeps adding up. So much time wasted. Like right now, people's biggest thing is like, can we actually compile a driver so it can run on Raspberry Pi graphics card? Yeah, no. That's the whole thing. You do not want to fight with your user. You want to solve their problem, and that's why they will pay you. Solve their problem, they will pay you. Ask them to do this, unless it's their job or it's a very unique thing, they're not going to deal with it. And there are other companies that took this core thing, made it into a video editing software, and they're willingly, not video editing, video converting software, and they're selling it for $50 a pop, legally. So this is the most critical understanding. Thou shall never fight with the user. You want their money, they will willingly give you if you solve a problem. If you're like, so open a book and then study the book and then keep screenshots of what command you need to copy paste. Yeah, bye. You lost your user. So this was my presentation on open source Paradox. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst a friend. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me your disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.